On that very note, let us tell you what exactly went down in that very meeting as we bring you breaking news from the United States. Donald Trump and the NYC Mayor-elect Mamdani meet at the White House. After months of trading insults, Trump and Mamdani finally had a meeting. Trump lavishes praise on New York City Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani, and Trump and Mamdani signal a surprising thaw. Trump and Mamdani, in fact, have even pledged to work together to deal with what the city faces and the challenges that New York City faces. In fact, Trump calls the meet with Mamdani good. He said, better Mamdani does, happier I am. And Mamdani also, on the other hand, calls the meeting with Donald Trump productive. He has said that looking forward to work together. So a surprising turn of events for sure at this given point. Let's in fact listen in to both sides as the meeting concluded.
We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there, the rent coming down. I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally, by building a lot of additional housing. Yeah. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, Dave de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against, a lot of smart people, starting with the early primaries against some very tough people, very smart people. And he beat them easily. And I congratulated him. And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built, and food and prices, and the price of oil is coming way down. Anything I do is going to be good for New York. If I can get prices down, it's good for New York. More than ICE per se, we discuss crime. And he doesn't want to see crime, and I don't want to see crime. And I have very little doubt that we're not going to get along on that issue. He wants to, and he said some things that were very interesting as to housing construction. And he wants to see houses go up. He wants to see a lot of houses created, a lot of apartments built, et cetera. And we actually, people would be shocked, but I want to see the same thing.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers. What I've shared with the president is our desire to not only follow the laws of our own city, laws that protect New Yorkers, but also a desire for consistency in our politics across the board. And that's something that we've talked about and something that I know many New Yorkers want. We discussed ICE and New York City, and I spoke about how the laws that we have in New York City allow for New York City government to speak to the federal administration for about 170 serious crimes. The concerns that many New Yorkers have are around the enforcement of immigration laws on New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, and most recently we're talking about a mother and her 2 children, how this has very...
With that, we have Rohit joining us on the broadcast to in fact bring us more details into the very conversation that took place between the 2 leaders. Rohit, very good morning to you at this point. This conversation that's taken place between the 2 leaders, it definitely does come in as a surprise, given that throughout the campaign we've seen quite a lot of exchanges and not so pleasant exchanges between both of these leaders, and not direct ones, but yes, they've spoken not in the best of light about each other. But now we see both leaders are looking forward to working together to make New York better.
Well, absolutely. I remember when he won the election on Tuesday, November 5th, he said, he meaning Mamdani, said turn the volume up to President Trump, and he didn't need to do that today. He was standing right next to President, as if he was just now, somebody who was nominated by President to be in his cabinet. Very, very calm, very composed, very amicable meeting, and from both the leaders. In fact, I spoke to one Indian American Democratic leader who said the only thing that they did not see in the White House today, and I'm reading it, is that he did not bend down to take Ashirwad from President Trump. So clearly, some Democrats are not happy seeing those images out there. But look, this is politics at its best. I think President Trump talked about it when he was speaking in the Oval Office. He said, look, people say things on campaign trail, and they're not necessarily always true. People do cross some boundaries. And I think he was alluding to some of those things that Mamdani has talked about President Trump, and President Trump talked about Mamdani. But then he's a New Yorker. President Trump comes from New York. It was his home for the longest time. And he wants to see things improve in New York, is what he said. He also has brought in the message of affordability within the MAGA faction. So I think he sees there's an opportunity to work and improve lives of New Yorkers. And then he also said in that same meeting, or rather, I should say, at the Oval Office after the meeting, that there will be, frankly, issues that they would not agree on, and he would try to convince Mamdani and vice versa. And if not, he can, pull the federal funding, or he could make it difficult. But he was very, a very different Mamdani from what we've seen, and a very different Donald Trump from the campaign. And look, this is something about President Donald Trump, and we've seen it time and again. He would say things, most extreme or outrageous things at times, but when he does see you in person and meet you in person, he's very cordial. So I think, yes, a lot of people surprised, media definitely surprised, but some people had assumed that this would actually happen, and that, for Mamdani to succeed, he would have to tone down his rhetoric and, come with an open mind. And I think President Trump heard him and agreed with some of his plans, and is willing to make an effort to make it happen.
I think one might say that what we are now witnessing is sort of a matured stance from both leaders in terms of, yes, working together for the city. But I would definitely say this, it does come in as a surprise at this given point. The two leaders belong to very different political ideologies. Them coming in and saying that, yes, we not just look forward to working together, but Trump expressing that, he wasn't aware how Mamdani wanted the same things that he did. That bit really does come in as quite a surprise at this given point, or rather the tonality behind the entire narrative.
Look, sure, I think people also need to understand, what did President Trump run on? He ran on improving lives of Americans. He ran on inflation, grocery prices. He ran on affordability, right? 2024, people voted for him, right? It's been a year now. People haven't seen things change in past year or so. And what did Mamdani run on? Same things, reducing rent, making sure inflation doesn't go up, making sure people can afford things. So if you look at both sides, essentially, his message of President Trump is quite similar to what Mamdani ran on. Although, yes, we can name them two different ideologies, but when it goes to voting and voters, they look at both the leaders as somebody wanting to improve their lives. So I think I kind of agree with that assessment where President Trump said that, look, his messaging, or his issues are the same as mine, that appeal to my base as well. And that's something even Zoran said, that most of his voters in this election voted for President Trump in 2024. So yes, again, in the polarized political campaign environment, you do see and look at things differently and say this guy is a socialist and communist and all that. And President Trump is talking about his things. But again, all those MAGA talking points about improving lives of Americans, making sure people have jobs, maybe making sure people are not paying too much on groceries, making sure people can, fairly compete. Like all those are similar talking points, if you just flip the coin this way or the other way around. So I think, yes, I kind of agree with President Trump's assessment. But yeah, a lot of people are in shock and surprised that Zoran Mamdani, and as we're showing him in those pictures, standing there like a schoolboy next to a principal and just shaking hands and taking pictures.
That very picture, you've explained it very well at this point, Rohit. Rohit, stay with us.